The Colorado Avalanche are one victory away from moving on to the Stanley Cup semifinals and sending the Wild packing for the summer after a fantastic game 4 in Minnesota where Colorado was victorious 5-2. Of course, there's been a lot of questions about the Josh Manson situation and the butt end with McCarron that we will discuss as well. And of course, we will break down the entire game coming up next on the Avalanche Report. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Avalanche Report. I am your host, Russ, and today's show, we will be discussing Game 4 in Minnesota. And if you like what I'm doing here, if you like these videos, if you like the channel, of course, hit the like button, subscribe as we continue to grow this channel out. So last night's game in Minnesota saw the Avalanche victorious 5-2 with goals coming from Nazem Kadri, an empty netter, of course, from Nathan MacKinnon, and the big goal coming from Parker Kelly, who gave the Avs the lead late in the third, and they would not lose the lead from there on out. We're going to talk about the entire game, but let's start, of course, with the very first thing that's been on the mind with a lot of Wild fans out there. Of course, that is the incident with Josh Manson and, of course, Michael McCarron and what happened on the ice. Now, what happened, at least what you could see, is Josh Manson was hit from Michael McCarron, grabbed a hold of him. They went down together on the ice. And then Josh Manson was seen butt-ending Michael McCarron, essentially. But if you really watched what occurred and the response that Josh Manson had to Michael McCarron rolling around on the ice after it occurred, Josh Manson, you could tell, was definitely just trying to punch Michael McCarron while they were down, which again happens all the time. I don't think he intentionally meant to hit him with the end of his stick. However, penalty was called, and the right penalty was called, because there is a penalty for a butt end of the stick, the 4-minute penalty. The Minnesota Wild got a power play out of it for 4 minutes. They got a goal and the lead out of it. And so really, it's not like nothing at all happened. But a lot of Minnesota fans seem to think that they wanted Josh Manson thrown out of the game. They think that that would have been, the right play in the playoffs. And overall, it would have been, the thing that would have made the difference in the game. But let's be honest. When you have only 4 shots through a large part of the game and, through 2 periods nearly only have, 10, 12, 15 shots total while the Avs are getting double digits easily, that's not going to make a massive difference. Now, what McCarron then went on and did is he was interviewed by ESPN during the intermission, and he had this to say: "He's a dirty player. He took his butt end and clearly butt-ended me in the face. I don't know how that's not a 5-minute. The rule book says it's a 5-minute if you butt end someone in the face. He's a dirty player. He's always been not very well respected." Well, Josh Manson was asked about this after the game, and this is what Josh Manson had to say. "Was it on purpose? Was that my intention? Absolutely not. My intention wasn't to butt end him. Did I mean to punch him in the head? I did want to punch him in the head. I was trying to give him a smack because I didn't like that he landed on top of me. I think I just lost awareness of where my grip was on my stick." He also talked about the fact that McCarron calling him a dirty player is interesting because Josh Manson has never been suspended in his career in the NHL. You know who has been suspended before? Michael McCarron. So very interesting thoughts from Michael McCarron on calling Josh Manson a dirty player when Josh Manson has never been suspended in his life. I'll be interested to see what you have to think about the Josh Manson, Michael McCarron situation and what's going to come about it here in the next game, if anything. My guess is nothing will happen the next game because of how important it is for Minnesota, unless for whatever reason the Avs get a massive lead in that game, and at which point then it looks all but for sure that Minnesota is not going to move on and they'll be eliminated. McCarron might do something at that point, or the team might do something at that point. Otherwise, we may not see anything until next season when the Avs play the Wild for the first time, at which point you could see McCarron or another player do some kind of retaliation. That's how it usually works in the NHL when it comes to this stuff. You usually put those beefs behind you when it comes to the actual playoffs because of how big of an impact that could have if you make a dumb decision versus a regular season game that may not matter, especially early on in the season. So let me know down below what you think about this. Do you think that Josh Manson should have got 5 minutes? Do you think Josh Manson should be suspended? Or do you think the 4 minutes was the right call and overall it did not have a huge effect on the game? As far as I'm concerned, it didn't, because guess what? Michael McCarron, he was perfectly fine after rolling around on that ice, getting that hit. I just think that a 4-minute power play is a very, very good thing that they got, and they got a goal out of it. So in the end, it didn't have a huge effect on the game because the Avs were able to come back and be victorious after going down 1-0 on that play. Now, let's go ahead and break down the rest of the game. Of course, like I said, the Minnesota Wild get a power play goal. Right now, the Avs PK, up until that goal, had not been doing very well in the Minnesota series, allowing way too many power play goals to Minnesota this series compared to last series against LA and compared to where the PK was all season. The Avs had one of the best PKs in the entire NHL this season. And so to see them kind of falter when it comes to the power play goals that they've allowed to Minnesota, that's not something you want to see. However, the Avs did make up for it, going much better the rest of the game on the PK, getting a number of big penalty kills at times when the game was very close that could have easily decided it for Minnesota. So definitely a good turnaround. And a couple of the guys that I want to highlight when it comes to the PK that I don't think are getting enough love, because I've already seen it online, these players being called out as terrible, horrible, all of the above. And that is Brock Nelson and Brent Burns. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think Brent Burns has been amazing this playoff run. He's had way too many boneheaded plays and just overall lapses in judgment and being able to pay attention to what's going on that have led to goals for both Minnesota and even a couple of goals in the LA series. But overall, Brent Burns is still making some plays on the PK that don't show up in the score sheet or anything like that. So I think that what he's been able to bring on that part has been really excellent. Same with Brock Nelson. Now, here's the thing with Brock Nelson. Brock Nelson was brought in and signed to the Avalanche to be a 2C. 2C, you're wanting anywhere between 40 to 60 points out of them and to be able to bring a secondary scoring to that second line. Nelson has gone cold when it comes to the score sheet this playoff. But what doesn't show up on that score sheet, just like Brent Burns, is Brock Nelson's ability to play defensively. He has been a big piece to the success on the PK, and even in 5-on-5 play, Brock Nelson's defensive plays have definitely been a big factor in not allowing Minnesota to get a lot of goals, not allowing LA to get a lot of goals, and just overall playing the way they needed. And what Jared Bednar did last night was he made a switch. Now, what's funny is I have seen people call the Brock Nelson line from last night the 2C line or the second line. No, they moved Brock Nelson down to the third line, kept those people the same, with his partners being Nick Waugh and Ross Colton, and moved Nazem Kadri up to the second line. And that is where we saw Nazem Kadri last night. That's where we saw Brock Nelson last night. And I thought it was a good move because overall Brock Nelson has had that stingy defense that a third line center and a third line should be playing. And that was a big difference in last night's game. They may not show up on the scorecard, like I said. They may not be getting the goals and the assists, but they are doing a lot to shut down Minnesota right now. And as far as I can tell, Minnesota is a one-line team. They are playing their stars way too much for a series, and the lack of depth is showing, and it's showing badly. And with the series now progressing to Denver for Game 5, Minnesota may be in big trouble. I could easily foresee a blowout coming in Game 5 because when you've just played guys like Quinn Hughes 30 minutes a night the last 2 games in a row, and now you have to come back to Denver and play at altitude after playing all those 30 minutes and most likely being asked to play 30 minutes yet again, you're going to eventually tire out. And honestly, that's what we saw at the end of tonight's game. Now, game was 1-0. Avalanche get a power play, and who scores a couple seconds on the power play but Nazem Kadri. I loved seeing him get a goal there. I love seeing yet again another power play goal for Colorado. Minnesota's PK is absolutely atrocious right now. It's the biggest reason that Dallas was in the series last round for the Minnesota-Dallas series was because of their power play. A lot of people thought that had to do with the fact that Dallas's power play was one of the best in the NHL. But now I think what we may be finding out for sure is that Minnesota may have one of the worst PKs in the NHL, or at least in these playoffs. They cannot seem to stop anything, and it's given the Avs power play new life, something that has struggled, for the better part of the season. Obviously, it got better once they made the Nazem Kadri trade and made some changes down the stretch. But overall, it's really good to see the Avs getting success there, and it's one of the big reasons that they're leading this series 3-1. Of course, after that, the game progressed, staying close, really back and forth. Now, the analytics really favored Colorado in this matchup. If you look at the different analytics that are out there, for instance, the who deserved to win meter that's available out there analytics-wise, it shows that the Avs were over an 80% chance to win this game if you redid it 100 times. Overall, based on the analytics, Colorado dominated. But truthfully, I don't feel like Colorado was above and beyond the better team, even though the shots showed that. The chances just weren't these high danger chances. They really made it easy on Wallstedt, and Wallstedt was very solid last night for Minnesota. He did exactly what he needed to do. He held them in that game when they were getting outshot. But in all honesty, he didn't have to face too many difficult chances from Colorado. It just felt like a kind of neutral zone game going back and forth with not much going on. Great defense from the Avs, of course, because Minnesota wasn't able to get anything really going. But on the back end of that, of course, Colorado not getting too many high danger chances and being able to take the lead or, even really put that game away. As far as the rest of the game goes, we'll take a look at the other goal scorers, of course, and what went on from there. So after that, it was 1-1 after 2 periods. Avs, of course, tying it in the second period on the power play goal by Nazem Kadri. And then in the third period, we finally got a breakthrough. Finally, after months and months of a scoring drought, Ross Colton gets a great pass from Nick Waugh, who's been absolutely insane and tremendous for Colorado since being acquired from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Thank you, Toronto. Finds Ross Colton on the back door for a tap in to give the Avs a 2-1 lead in the third period with roughly about 13 minutes remaining. However, as been kind of the normal thing for the Avs, they soon allowed Minnesota to get back in and tie the game with a Nico Sturm goal off of an assist from Quinn Hughes. And then, not that long after that, one of the best shifts of the entire playoffs. Jack Drury, Parker Kelly, Logan O'Connor, that fourth line for the Avs is probably one of the biggest difference makers in this series. It is a testament to the depth that the Avs have compared to Minnesota, and we saw that in Parker Kelly, Jack Drury, Logan O'Connor on the forecheck, getting 2 turnovers to occur, and then Jack Drury finding Parker Kelly in the slot. One-timer beats Jesper Wallstedt and gives the Avs a 3-2 lead with roughly about 6-7 minutes left in the third period, giving the Avs the lead. And then Minnesota from there tried to push for the tie, eventually pulled the goalie, but they really were not getting any zone time. The Avs were doing a great job of getting the puck, keeping it out of the zone, wasting time as they needed to. And then, of course, they finished the game with 2 empty net goals. One by Nathan MacKinnon, of course, who's always on the ice, ready to go for that to get those empty net goals. And then Brock Nelson, he does get on the scorecard with a goal off of an empty net goal at the very end. But 5-2 is the final. Colorado has a 3-1 lead heading into Denver tomorrow night, where the Avs will have a chance to, for the first time since I believe 2008, close out a playoff series at home. That's right. The Avs have not closed out a playoff series in nearly 20 years at home. They usually do it on the road, either because they sweep the other team, which they've done, obviously, this playoffs, and the 2022 run where they went to the Cup, they'd had multiple sweeps or ended up winning on the road in Game 6. That was just the normalcy that they were doing. Let's see if the Avs can finally give the home crowd faithful a chance to celebrate the closing out of a series and give Minnesota a trip home. Let's talk about what's going to happen this next game, as, of course, we did miss on some injuries last game. Arturi Lehkonen and Sam Malinski both missing Game 4 for Colorado. I was really concerned when we lost Sam Malinski for that game, and we had to bring in, another defenseman to fill in for Malinski. Not a good look for the Avs. Luckily, they get the victory, even missing Malinski. So missing Malinski, missing Lehkonen, getting Manson back at least. But Colorado hopefully can get back one of Malinski and Lehkonen, and they are not serious injuries that'll keep them out longer term. It'll be interesting to see as far as McKinnon goes, and his nose that took a nice puck to the face in last night's game is good to go. I have no doubt he'll play. But it'll be very interesting to see who plays, who doesn't, what roster changes are made, because I just don't think a defensive pairing of keeping a player like Jack Eichel, he had a rough game. I will just say that. Jack Eichel made his playoff NHL debut, did not play for very much, and when he did not look very good. So hopefully the Avs can get back Malinski for this next game. Minnesota, on the other hand, it sounds like Brodin and Eriksson Ek are not coming back for the Wild. I said it last week that I did not think Brodin for sure was not coming back. He had not skated yet. He had not even taken the ice. Ek at least took to the ice one day at practice, and so there was some optimism that he was maybe going to play either in Game 3 or 4. But at this point, if he has not played this far up in the series, I just don't feel like Minnesota's getting him back this playoff run, or at least this round. If they were to, somehow manage to come back, he wouldn't be back until next round. That's a massive loss for Minnesota. They're already thin. They're not a deep team. This team is very top heavy, as we see in the ice time that their coach and Minnesota does. So not having that depth of Eriksson Ek to be able to combat what the Avs have going on is a massive blow for Minnesota. And I think it's just, I think the Avs at minimum win in Game 6. They may not win tomorrow night, but I have a feeling they could, and they will. Just because, again, I feel like Minnesota just has done too much. They've pushed their top players too far, and they're going to be a little bit tired come tomorrow's game. You saw that at the end of the period, again, when I talked about the empty net and trying to get some offense going to get that tie game. Minnesota's players, you could tell, were just gassed. They were not able to keep that speed. Hughes was not able to possess the puck like he usually does. And that right there is going to spell trouble for them. And tomorrow night will probably be the same, because now you're coming back to Denver. You only get a day's rest. It's not like that long rest between the Colorado home first 2 games and Minnesota's game 3 and 4. So that's going to be a big thing to watch. I could very well see the Avs come away with a big victory, but at minimum, I think the Avs close this out in 6 in Minnesota, and will move on to face the winner of Vegas and Anaheim, which I like the Avs odds against both those teams. Right now, they are a very close series. A little bit surprising. It looked like Vegas might walk away, and Anaheim's definitely been very resilient in that series. Hopefully that series goes a little bit longer, gives the Avs a break, and gives them a chance to go right back against Vegas or Anaheim. And on the other side, if we really quickly look at the Eastern Conference, I just want to throw this out there, by the way. The Carolina Hurricanes will be in the Stanley Cup final. And it's mostly because, again, I think the East is a lot weaker than the top of the West. I think overall the East is a lot closer in skill to each other. The West, there's just the top cream of the crop. You've got Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, and then everybody else. In the East, you've got Carolina, and then everybody else. And Carolina has definitely had an easy path so far. I know that they're 8-0, but getting to play Philadelphia, getting to, those teams are not it's just such an easy path compared to Colorado and whoever would come out of this, had it been Dallas, had it been Minnesota, had it been Colorado. The fact that they're playing each other in the first, 2 rounds is just absolutely crazy. And I just think it most likely, whoever comes out of this series is probably going to be representing the West, and they're probably going to be playing Carolina in the finals. Although I would love to see a Montreal make it to the finals and upset Carolina. I think a Montreal-Colorado series would be absolutely entertaining to watch. And heck, a Carolina Avalanche series would be as well. I've always loved their matchups in the regular season when they've played each other, and always thought that a series like that would do really well as well. So we'll have to see what happens with that. So tomorrow night, Avs have a chance to close out the series at home. We'll see what happens after that game. We'll have a review coming to you on the day after. But yeah, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you think. Do you think the Avs close it out tomorrow night? Do you think they close it out in 6? Does it take 7? Or does Minnesota find a way to win 3 straight games and win this series after being down 3-1? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll talk to you guys later for the Avalanche Report. I'm Russ, and go Avalanche.